ask, go sit down, please. Feel free to go through this door, take a left and go up, and you can sit down on the top on the second floor. All right, and now we're going to begin our amazing panel of scaling dual-use and defense technologies. Guys in the back, we're going to start the panel now. I would like your attention. All right, let's go applause. Woo. So, today we have an amazing panel about scaling dual-use and defense technologies. We have Robotics from Appointment, a venture capital firm, Tomas Velashauskas from RSI Europe, and Kristijonas Vizbaras from BROSWARM. So guys, maybe as a warm-up question, maybe you can briefly tell why did you get into dual-use defense technologies? How did your journey start? For you, Rocky, what were your first companies that you invested that you can publicly disclose?
Well, in the war, it started with Russia. So in 2014, they did this adventure in Crimea, and I said, okay, this is not going to stop here. Sadly, I was right. And I've sort of started my journey with, first of all, learning how to kill people at industrial scale. That's what the military does. And afterwards, transitioned to also funding companies that help us kill people even faster. That's the innovation in defense industry. The first defense company I've backed must have been a UK company called Visgard. They're now a supplier to a lot of London police and various providers. But since then, I've, as an advisor, as an investor, I've joined maybe 30 defense startups, mostly through working with ScaleWolf. And we have Bridget here somewhere in the back room. How, if you can hear me? Oh yeah, she's over there. So we did like 20 plus companies together, and then I did a few others in other geographies.
Thank you, Robbie. Mike?
My journey started in 2022 February when large-scale invasion happened, and me and my brother were looking how to help Ukraine with. Our thesis was that Western defense market is completely underprepared for what came for them. It was no longer a limited operation, it was an industrial war, and we decided to be part of that. It was purely a defensive call. We were not soldiers, professionals who could go there, who could go to Ukraine and do the job the hard way. So we went into the technology field to bridge the gap between what was developed over the last 50 years in commercial sector and bring that to defense users who can do the job much better than we do.
Thank you for coming, Tommy. Kristijonas, how did your journey start? It's
on. So our defense activity started in 2014. So when Russia invaded Ukraine. We were already back then running a technology company, a semiconductor component developing and manufacturing company. It was a fresh, young company back at the time, so it was just a full year when we had all our infrastructure running. We were already making semiconductor components, laser diodes, photo detectors, and so on. And then running first R&D contract projects, and Maidan and then Russian invasion happened, and we decided to, out of self-defense initiative and then basically the urgent need internally and from the society, we figured that we need to do something in defense. So we realized quite quickly that with the semiconductor component, I mean, a soldier cannot directly use it. It's a long way to make it useful in a way, and we felt like we don't have time and similar. And we decided to utilize our skill set, so ours and the team that we had back then, the engineering team at the company, and started making electro-optical systems. So this was, we started it after making a due diligence in the Lithuanian army, that it was composed of the infantry component and so on. So our choice back then was dismounted soldier systems. So electro-optical systems in general, but we focused on the dismounted soldier segment because that was the largest component of the military back in the day, and still is, by the way. So we felt that this is the biggest force multiplier that we could add quickly.
Awesome. Kristijonas, maybe you can continue and share, for example, your success I've seen publicly from Broad's announcements that your technology is being used by Lithuanian military in Denmark and Belgium. Maybe you can just tell us briefly about that.
Today, Dual-Use is I would say, quite a mature company already, so no longer startup. I hate that word, honestly. So I think we are a mature company that is currently growing. We have massive serial production and so on and so forth. We supply 39 countries globally. So this is mainly NATO and NATO allied countries. So from Europe to Canada, Australia, USA as well. So it's I think it's already an established player in European defense infrastructure. So the contracts we have, the contracts we win, especially in the last 3 years, put us really among the major guys. We compete with Rheinmetall, Wilcox, Myers, and the brand names that have been known much longer before, and we are super successful in that. So it's
Amazing, thank you very much. Tommy, maybe you can share a little bit about RSI Europe. Where is your technology already being used? Anything that's publicly available.
So we started RSI with a very broad idea. Once again, we did due diligence. First with the idea, what we can do, and we were well versed at the time in radio electronics. We did some IoT device business before, which was not very successful, but really brought us the knowledge of how the IoT works, and we thought maybe something with IoT could be done in military. So after initial meetings with military engineers, who were using radios and remotely controlled initiation devices, we figured out that maybe something like a smart bomb could be nice, but once again, after facing first clients and first industry people, we understood that the bomb part needs to really go away if we want to hit the market before the war ends. So we went with the remote initiation systems. And that was the first system with which we prototyped already in 2022 spring. During the summer, we got the first test of the polygons that were successful. And later in the year, at the end of the summer, our equipment was already being tested in Ukraine. And by the end of the year, we had first contracts from state, Tapinas Slice STV initiative and some smaller other support funds to ship the equipment to Ukraine. Since then, our produced remote explosive initiation equipment became the main remote initiation equipment for explosives for Ukrainian engineering forces. We supplied them for 3 years since then in massive quantities, over 10,000 pieces of equipment per year. And the equipment use expanded from the engineers to the regular army, to the special operations, to the territorial brigades, to GUR, of course, to do very interesting and very untraditional operations with the flexible equipment that the remote initiation systems are. Being established and having some technological capacity in 2023, when the FPV drone revolution started, we were fortunate to have some really big enthusiasts of drone technology in our company, and with a capacity that was pretty much flying radios, we decided to go in that area, and we were among the first companies to field the FPV drones on the Ukrainian battlefield as a military product. Because first drones were really a hobbyist drones. What we brought a drone with hardened radio link, which could survive the electronic warfare environment at that time, and that was enough to get the thing rolling. And until now, I think we ship over 10,000 pieces of drones, plus all the supporting equipment, because it's not only the drones, it's the ground stations, the antenna racks, the goggles. That's the whole system that you need to operate in the battlefield.
Thank you so much, Tommy. That's amazing. Okay, maybe you can share some of your investment successes. what startups have scaled the most that you can mention?
Well, allow me to first second something that the two gentlemen have said. So both Kristijonas and Thomas, they are founders of successful defense companies that have really made it in the thing. So all these questions that was in the previous panel, how do you start, how do you scale, what's the next thing, these guys have done it, and you are a very good audience. I was at an exercise, I think a year and a half ago, where we actually used both of your products. And the exercise went great, the products were great, so these guys have really built an amazing stuff. Now, as so far into the successes of my portfolio companies, I'm going to be very short-lived here. There was an announcement by one of the portfolio companies that they are going through a merger to 1.5 billion valuation, and they're going to be floated at NASDAQ later this year. So I guess I have a defense unicorn in my portfolio, and unfortunately that's all I can say at this point.
Well, thank you. Like it short and brief. So maybe let's drill deeper about our successful entrepreneurs. Yeah, I don't know if you were here for the last panel. We had a lot of discussions how to get this first successful pilot, how to make it successful. So moving from prototype to this pilot and making it a success, would you have what would be your tips and tricks? Maybe starting with Tommy, because the microphone is closer to you.
Well, the prototype is only good if you iterate with it in real operational environment. So if you prototype something that is already useful, you need to get the operational feedback and really implement it in a way that it scales. And not all the feedback scales. There's plenty of wishes.
A little bit closer.
There's plenty of wishes that you get, but not all of those wishes are meant to be scalable things. So I think for a product company, it's really important to get the prototype to something that can be mass used. So yeah, that would be one.
But looking back at, let's say, your first pilots, what helped you kind of make them a success and get through and get that first paying customer?
It worked. It did the job that it's supposed to do. I think that's the very important thing. If you did your research right and you built your thesis around something that is needed on the battlefield, and if the prototype works, that enough is to secure a pilot batch. And in defense, it's a long story. You start with the first pilot, somebody tests it. If it works, you get the pilot batch. If you deliver the first pilot batch, maybe you get a bigger pilot batch. If you do the second pilot batch, you might get a program or a contract. So that's how it started, and the first pilot worked, and the first small batch that we delivered were pretty much consistent and worked as well, and had some extra features baked in that we could do between the first pilot and the first batch. So I think that's the most important thing. The reliability
has to work. Great, thank you, Tommy. Kristijonas, same question to you. I know you already had a growing technology company and you decided kind of to pivot or to build defense technologies next to it. But so maybe you can share from your memories, how did you get this first pilots or first customers, and what helped you succeed?
So the defense stuff we built next to the existing company, and in 2019 we separated those two legal entities into completely separate by activity. But even back then, today I would think I would follow the same track. The idea was we need to build something that solves the problem. That solves the problem that is now basically, because you need to sell it, right? It has to be useful. So this is how we did the due diligence. We figured out what is needed. Back in the day, everything was needed similar to today, but we had to figure out what is the fastest way to market, what is possibly the largest, nearest time frame scale in the market, like local, global, whatever. And then we had to deliver to make sure that we build a prototype that actually does solve the problem, that we can convince everybody that this is the way to go, and so on. So, how to say, we wanted to build like a first of a kind or whatever advanced system initially, but we saw that in order to get trust for that, we had to basically show that we can deliver something, make something work, and so on. Our first sales happened actually in France, UK, a bit of Germany, and so on, where we developed a custom, relatively simple, but products that we managed to basically solve certain needs of certain specific customers really rapidly. We got small conditional contracts that if we will do it, basically show it, it is up to spec, we'll get the contract. So we did that, so the French GIGN, French Special Operation Forces, the UK's Special Operation Forces, they did small procurements that gave us a track record. And then in Lithuania we had a special project that we built for, so that we again marketed it well and demonstrated the technology capability and blah blah blah. And at the end we also got a conditional contract which later on turned into a sizable contract that was made us profitable basically, and ever since then we were a profitable company.
Amazing. If we can double click into that a little bit, because you mentioned so many different countries, and I think you also said that they had slightly different requirements. How do you balance this custom work to making something that's scalable and you can easily, manufacture and then sell across multiple markets?
I mean, this is the startup, the early stage company challenge, because you can never satisfy everyone, but for the first projects you will still have to do it. You need to find your first customer that will basically bring your whatever prototype and productize it, make it a product. So I think, at least my choice would be to look for something that would not solve a super niche problem, right? Because you will spend the equal amount of time on productizing a solution that is not needed for everyone, as well as on a solution that will be needed by everyone. So you have to make a choice, basically deliver a solution that solves the problem. This is the most important thing. If that solves the problem, you will go into serial production. And then, of course, production is another thing, but I think it's like that.
Thank you. Tommy, to continue on this question, did you have to do a lot of custom work in the beginning? Maybe do you still even provide, let's say, some custom features, custom development as a service next to your product?
To be honest, we have not done much custom work. We tend to work in iteration cycles, and on the rice equipment side, now we're shipping a version of the system. And every half a year, once we would get a more meaningful order, we would just get a new version, which then is pretty much for everybody for that upcoming year, until there's a newer version that incorporates more of the feedback. The versions started to emerge a bit later in the company maturity stage, where we started serving different segments of the customer base. For example, maybe customers, they don't need electric initiation, they need non-electric initiation method. So then we have different portfolios of initiators who then can be customized, but they still can be customized within boundaries of the system. We built into the software especially that you can configure the different client needs and try to constantly to get as many client needs from all the engagements that we get into the libraries and to build that into the products. But if you start going after each need, then you really have to sacrifice the scale. With drones, it's a bit different. Drones can be a million different things, and it is a thing that is built on different principles, especially the modularity, and that's in FPV field. It's even more proliferated. Every component needs to be modular because soldiers might want to change it before the use, especially on the frequencies, on the payloads, on the batteries. So it's more like a platform that allows you multiple options. So every product has its own challenges, and I think it's a company choice whether you allow for customization or not.
Yeah, thank you, Tomek. Rocky, so how do you view custom work in your portfolio startups? Do you encourage it, then they're trying to get their first customers? Or is this something that actually scares you away as an investor in the defense sector?
Yeah, for sure. You want to hear iterative development, and you want to hear that we know what we're doing. Our customers want exactly the product we're building, and we're going to keep building, and we're going to be profitable from tomorrow. That's never happening. So in the early stages, I lean on the side of do custom work, because chances are you don't have the best idea of what the customer needs in terms of what you're building, and let them tell you what they need and build what they need, and then try to sell to the next guy and listen to him. We had a company where we were building an AI-like solution for counter UAV, but the first customer was Navy, and we were doing something else. Originally, we wanted to protect the airports. And then we ended up protecting different kind of objects from UAVs. Then we started building the product for drones that we hunt drones. And ultimately we started protecting airports, but not from UAVs. And it works now. We have a portfolio of customers with different products, and none of it is the product we originally wanted. So at this stage, I'm leaning towards do custom work.
Well, let's continue with you, Roka. So you mentioned all these different sectors and different parts of military, Navy. Where would you see, let's say, I don't want to use the word lucrative, but like potential opportunities for new startups that potentially might even form here today? What would you advise them in which sectors of the defense or dual use they should look at?
Well, I have two answers for that, right? So the textbook answer is you look at what's the theoretical technology framework. So use NATO STOs, the Science and Technology Organization for that. They have these emerging disruptive technologies, the hypersonics, the quantums, the AI, the big data, connected battlefield, all of that. As on the previous panel, you were told it's very hard to build quantum or hypersonics early on, but if you could, definitely go into that. Now, on the business side of things, what's being used today, and we have a new war started since last weekend, arguably two new wars. I'd say making one-way effectors cheaper. So if you can make the next Tomahawk cheaper, if you can make the next maybe whatever the Shaded, the Lucas cheaper, then they go for that. Probably not the drone. There are already so many manufacturers of that, but maybe you can make the engine, the avionics, whatnot. Also zero China in that. So one-way effectors is definitely gonna stay there in the mainstream. And then of course the other side of it, counter UAS. So is that jamming? Is that soft kill? Is that hard kill? Is that software? Is that detection? Or is that a drone hunting drones? Or is that an interceptor? But again, if you make that engagement cost efficient, at the moment they're not, both ways. For our alliance, for NATO, we are expending expensive weapons and expensive defenses. If you can make either one of those cheaper by a factor, then you go to business.
Awesome. Maybe we can continue with Thomas. Tommy, if you would be starting again today from scratch, probably you would start RSI again. But let's say some other ideas. Maybe you see some bottlenecks in the industry. Maybe some technology would actually, help and facilitate what you're doing. Where would you advise new potential defense founders to look at?
Well, I think it's really important to measure and choose the scale at which you can achieve results. So drone was initially one of our ideas to start, but we thought it's not something we can achieve with the resources that are available to us, and we chose a much smaller thing. I think now there's a lot of drone companies, and that space is even crazier. So focusing on something that all those drone companies need is probably a rather good idea. So making advanced component for any of those strike platforms of the future is definitely a good idea. Build European, that's also what today's politics needs. And yeah, I would choose that.
Thank you, Tommy. Tell me, what would be your advice? Which sectors of defense industry you would look into if you were starting from scratch?
So I would probably share in a way what Thomas said, that you should measure what you can actually deliver. That's one thing, because you can maybe fantasize about hypersonic missiles and so on, but the likelihood is that there's a quite big chance that you will not make it. So, I mean, being realistic and then looking for niche areas or sectors where you can either cannibalize or steal someone's breakfast, especially from the old big integrators and so on, because they are slow, bureaucratic, and so on. I mean, you can steal the lunch if you do it well. So from the classical sectors and from the new sectors, anything where you can control the project and the process A to Z. I'm a big fan of doing everything on your own, so basically delivering the solution and selling it to the government, armed forces, whatever, avoiding any intermediaries and so on, which can actually, by being slack, simply drown you. So, but that's my vision.
Maybe let's, by the way, guys in the back, it's getting a bit loud. Hello? If you wanna, guys in the back, if you wanna have your own conversations, feel free to leave. So maybe if we can look into these new opportunities from the current events that's happening. Obviously, you know, events in Iraq were a bit of a surprise probably for everyone. Would you see as would you see that as something changed? Would you see something new applications that emerged? Something that surprised you that's different from obviously from Ukraine?
Well, not for me personally. I think maybe it, how to say, removed the mist a bit from this public media, where it was like, oh no, now only the drones, now everything classical doesn't work, which is it's nonsense. Even in Ukraine, everything works. The different types of battles, different stages, and then so on. So you need every layer. It's not that now it's just the layer. So and then the Iran's situation simply showed what superpower is USA. What a lot of capital and a lot of technology means. And I mean, sure, you can argue that they are using super expensive, weapons and so on, but super effectively, efficiently. Putin, million men put down to death, another million is dying now, trying to achieve the target that he simply, that Trump did, like bam, 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 all the heads are off, right? In a day, literally. So this is, it's a different war, and this is also what NATO is about, what even European technology is about. Maybe not to that scale, but not that backwards, actually. I think we often forget how rich and how capable in manufacturing we are, in manufacturing high technology. And I think that simply showed that. Of course, this opens a full spectrum of opportunity to make whatever, all those expensive weapons, maybe cheaper with the same efficiency, from whatever, radios to missiles to you name it. So this is the opportunity field where to work and develop for. So this just opens a different scale compared to Ukraine.
It's going to be a land invasion. And if it's going to be land invasion, then it changes the conflict a lot. And it seems that it might come to that because the initial goals are not really being achieved as of this point very clearly. So if that happens, then there's a really huge opportunity on the rest of the armaments, not that expensive segment, and probably even more drones, even more close-range stuff that we see in Ukraine, and that would come at a mass because it's pretty much the same scale conflict at least, or maybe potentially even bigger. The second question is, what it changes in the other players' calculus, and in particular in China's calculus, because now one of their allies is being attacked, actually one after another, and if they are really planning to attack Taiwan, there's no better opportunity to do it than now. They've been planning it for 2027, maybe. If I would be China, I would do it today, because every later date would be a worse date. No, but that's simple. And that might open up another opportunities and challenges, as those who depend on China will have to really find new alternatives at very different price levels. And for many, many components and systems that are still produced in China, there would be an enormous demand in this relatively safe region, which Europe is.
Rocky, maybe you want to add, thank you, Tommy. Maybe you want to answer the same question?
Well, I completely agree with what the gentlemen have said. There isn't much to add. I think there is not much surprise now. This was up and coming, and all the surprises happened last summer in the 12 days war. What I think is interesting in this case is that the war in Ukraine and the recent conflicts in the Middle East, they are very different. And if they're our teachers, then they teach us different things, because we were told that the battlefield is extremely transparent, we can see a lot of things, and sure, the US military can definitely see a lot more than we can, but still at the same time, we, the public and everyone who's like sort of in the know, are definitely getting a lot less insight from the Middle East conflicts than we're getting from Ukraine, and I think there's a dimension to that. Obviously, if there was a land component to this war, then that might change. But at the moment, that's like a different learning environment, and maybe some different lessons can be drawn there. At the same time, this is week one. I think we were fairly puzzled in week one back in 2022. So, you know, if this drags on into 2 weeks or 5 weeks, I think we might learn some frankly unpleasant truths.
So, Rocky, let's continue the view from a venture capital standpoint. Do you think this is going to create even more demand and more capital flowing into the defense industry? Is it going to be maybe at least helpful for you to fundraise? Is it going to create a lot more startups, a lot of more funding opportunities for them?
Hell yes. I was thinking at the end of last panel, you asked people to say something positive, so here's some morbid positivity. The phenomenon of war is never going to end. You will always have customers. As the mankind, we've been killing each other for now 10,000 years, and we'll continue to kill each other for the next 10,000 years. And this is a new promo marketing event that is driving more demand for all of you.
Well, it's hard to follow now this statement. Tommy, maybe we can talk a little bit about funding with you. I don't know if you have raised any funding for RSI Europe. Maybe you can tell a little bit, have you used any grant, European funding opportunities? How was your experience?
We started the business with our own funds. After initial idea and formulation, we tried to access market, talk with some angels. There were no VCs available who would touch defense at that time. It was very promising, and Rokas was working on some things to help us out. Unfortunately, it took way too long in the bureaucratic corridors, but yeah. It is what it is. But things have changed a lot since then, and I think now the seed, pre-seed, early stage funding is so plenty that it's even overcrowded. Maybe later stage funding could be more accessible, but it's not that, especially with Elvinas Capital, for example, starting up last year, and some other funds changing their policies. And after that unsuccessful initial try, we got the traction. We got the publicly funded through fundraise of the people, let's call it, and that helped us to move to the contracts. We also got a small Start grant in 2023 that we used in the coming 2 years to develop some of the technologies that covered part of the development cost. And we've got a loan from ILTE to fund us our networking capital cycle with one larger order, which was pretty much loan to backed by a contract to deliver the goods.
Did you encounter any resistance, or let's say, were anyone afraid to fund a defense or dual-use company?
In the first place, you don't even go and talk with somebody who wouldn't be looking in that field, and they probably wouldn't meet us, knowing what.
Well, I guess we hear in more questions about like ILTE or InnoStart funding programs.
Well, InnoStart, yes, it was very weird, and we had to package like from defense technology, some radio development thing that is dual use for sure. But ILTE is it's a state development financial institution, now probably a state development bank, which actually focuses on the sectors that are underserved. So they are very open and friendly to all the business, and I think they have products from very early stage now, funding options on venture capital, debt, different kinds of debt that all of the founders who are here should be exploring, I think, as a first option and first window to know.
Thank you, Tommy. Christiane, maybe you can share how you funded your defense products initially. Have you used any of the European programs? Were they useful?
No, we did not use any European programs for the defense. Back in the day, it was completely forbidden to use European money for this type of purpose. Also, in the times like 2014, 2015, we still had a venture capital fund with which we started the company, the general company. So they were partially funded by European money, so they also could not support the defense activity. So, and that activity was a side activity, so we could not use any of the equipment, which was anyway dedicated to the other thing that we were developing. This clash we solved in a way that in 2015 we started a management buyout procedure, so we bought out the risk capital, and we got some new investors, family and friends of ours, so the Robotics partners were there, Light Conversion, the owners of and founders of Light Conversion back in the day. So only one of them is alive today. So we formed a team which was we called and still called today Family and Friends. So those people chipped in to fund the defense project that we were running at the time. So from 2015 to the end of 2016, they had to help us survive. And then we nailed a big contract that made us profitable, and ever since then, we were self-funded and basically investing money from our profit into developing new systems, expanding, and so on and so forth.
Christiane, so what would you advise early stage companies, people that are going into this field now, looking back at all of this experience? Maybe not everyone has, the network that you manage, that you have. Maybe you can also comment, for example, how do you support some of the startup programs, accelerators? Do you find them useful for new products, new companies?
It's a tough question for me, because me and my two brothers, the way we developed the business and the way we funded it and the way we ran it, we did it in a bit different way. We never liked the accelerators and hackathons and all that program. Take it as my opinion, I have no offense. The way I looked at it back then, still look at it today in a way as more of an activism rather than something that is leading to your goal. I mean, you can spend all your time in networking and all those whatever accelerator events or God knows what, but then the question is, when is the time that you are actually doing the work? When are you developing? When you are building your company, making a business plan, actually trying to find the decision makers, trying to figure out the problem, trying to solve it and so on. So I think this is important. I think in business, just like in life, being able to focus is super important. So every investor that we pitched, that we met during our money raise campaign, we did it like in a boutique level, like really privately. We would figure out, somebody would say, okay, this guy maybe is interesting, and so we would approach, we would make a few iterations, not happy, we don't like him, they don't like us, we move on and so on, and do it step by step, but with every iteration more and more prepared, and in meanwhile, building your stuff. Doing what actually matters, making sure that you are progressing somewhere. So for me, the building a company is about that. And later on, it's even more than that. Of course, back in the day, 2012, 11, 13, I mean, none of that was available. So that was a rarity. So I think this venture capital in Lithuania appeared in 2010, theoretically, when Jeremy Initiative European Investment Fund was done in Lithuania, and then you had all those lit capital, block cap, famous, and then all other capitals coming into the game, and so we had money available, and now defense and everything, it's like, you know, everybody wants to be in the game, so now it's a completely different story.
So if continuing, let's say we already get funded, and obviously you guys have scaled through multiple markets. Kristiani, maybe let's continue with you for now for a minute. What were your main lessons, or what would be your main tips, you know, once you have that product that starts selling and you're going to a new different market in defense? What would you advise newcomers?
Again, this is purely my perspective. The way we did it, I don't think there is a single way how to do it. But we like to do it on our own. Basically, I don't believe that somebody will do it for you. So be it whatever, agent, distributor, in between some entity and so on. No one has ever made anything useful for us that was in between. So everywhere we work directly. I think also I was late to the previous session, so I had just a bit of the final discussion and so on. I would dare to say that trying to avoid regulations. You know, military, dual use, avoiding all the certifications, avoiding entering complex bureaucratic procurement processes done by the government. I think this is a huge mistake. You cannot avoid the unavoidable. The only customer you can sell in defense is the government. It's the bureaucratic giant of the giants. It's also, I think, it's important to distinguish between military armed forces, that's one bureaucratic apparatus, then you have Ministry of Defense, that's a second bureaucratic apparatus. Army never buys directly. You sell to the Ministry of Defense. Those are two different objects. So you have to learn to navigate in your map. You have to understand who your customer is and so on. And of course you can, sometimes people choose to operate like with the big primes. So sort of I will sell to whatever prime metals of the world, and they will then make it happen. This is a comfortable approach, because then you sort of move away all the whatever procurement, engagement problems and so on. But at the same time you don't control the ball anymore. You're dependent. If you are not a priority to them, it's game over for you. There's nothing you can change. So I think it's that maybe.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That was great. Tommy, maybe you can add to that. Scaling once you get this product working, that you find your product market fit. As you know, we see in the startup world, what were your lessons? What tips could you share?
So I think Kristianas very rightly pointed out that each product is very different, and each product has a very different sales approach, or how you distribute it globally. Some systems are classical, some systems are novel, and the ways to procure them just don't exist in the classical systems. So we had both of the systems. Like RISE is the classical engineer tool. Drones, nobody doesn't know what is drones. It's class 1 stuff that does everything, reconnaissance, strike, whatever, it does everything. So for those two products, we went completely different ways. And with RISE, you can go with procurement, regular cycles. You go maybe through some engineers, the schools, some opinion leaders who actually use it and tell everybody else that it's a good thing. With drones, we found that it's much more beneficial to go with some trusted people in the distribution sector. Somebody maybe who's fulfilling a rapid order for the Ministries of Defense modernization program. They just got the political will to buy 1,000 drones this year and they need to fulfill it. So finding, and every country is very specific. Some are super protectionist, some have a transparent process, some have informal ways of doing stuff. So understanding those differences is also very important once you choose your go-to-market strategies.
Thank you, Tommy. Okay, about go-to-market strategies, you've seen a lot of startups go-to-market. What would be lessons that you've seen, kind of like everyone repeat, and you could share today?
I wish there was a silver bullet. Rather than I'm going to second some of what these gentlemen said, particularly what Kristijonas has said. Doesn't matter if you're at scale, if your prototype stuck, or you're just thinking about it. You have to be sort of, compared to regular startup, the civilian startup, you have to be like 3 teams in one. One, you have to build it, make it work, scale it, ship it, sell it. But 2, you have to understand your user. This is the military, they have their own lingo, they work in a special pattern. You might think, okay, I have this drone here, you press a button, it flies away, it kills everything it sees, it flies up to 100 kilometers. That's very nice, and I'm gonna give it to a soldier. But to a military, that's the battery. That's going to be a divisional asset, and the alternative is going to be Army aviation rather than FPV drone. What the hell all of these words mean, and what's the difference between these other battles and all these other echelon levels and whatnot. So the second thing, on top of just being able to build your stuff, you have to speak the user's language and know who the user is. Is that a squad weapon? Is that a divisional asset? Is that something else? And if you don't know what these words mean, then also you need to learn about them. So that's 2. And third, as Kristijonas rightly put out, but they're not going to pay you for that. You might have a user who absolutely loves what you're doing, but they're never going to buy you because it's the MOD and the various procurement inlets, if you like, who are actually buying your stuff. So you have to have a third team who knows all the procurement frameworks, understands all these regulations, all the licensing, all the laws and whatnot. At whichever step you are in your defense startup, or maybe just thinking about it, these are things you can't get away with, or you have to do this. So think about that, and if the question is what do you need for scaling, you need this.
All right, well, closing remarks, guys. For you, Rocky, what would you wish that startups that come to pitch you would know and would do it right to get the funding?
Well, join the Rifleman Union, as been discussed here. Spend a few years on learning all of these buzzwords and know them when you pitch them.
Great. Tommy, what would you advise new startups, beginners in the defense industry? What would be your one thing, maybe something that you would like to tell yourself when you were just starting RSI?
Listen to Roka's advice on the team. You have to know government, you have to know military, and you have to know technology. That's a must. And especially know the military norms that would save a lot of embarrassment and getting shouted from the officers once you do the appropriate stuff. But yeah.
Thank you. Kristijonas, any final remarks?
So, okay, I think it's, you have to be focused, stay on your path, solve a problem. And then if we are talking here locally about Lithuania and so on, because I think in the previous panel there was a lot of shots fired at whatever Lithuanian institutions and so on. I think Lithuania as a country itself, it's too small to even make sense for a single company like ours to exist. It will never make enough procurement to give you enough revenue, profit, whatever. Development, you should look at the market as a unified, whatever. Easiest, I think, for a startup is European Union, because we have no borders in a single economic zone. And avoiding the super bureaucratic countries which are typically inflexible, like Germany, France, then the rest. I think it's something that you can easily operate and navigate, and you should definitely explore that. Not stick to just a single small country market. Look at it globally, regionally, and then basically try to develop your idea. How to say? Yeah?
Fair enough. Simple, guys. So let's get started. Thank you very much, guys. This was Žvaigždinas from Brothers, Tomas Lašauskas from SI Europe, and Rokas Tomašūnas from BROSWARM. Thank you very much.
All right, good talk. Let's get a drink.
No Q&A?
No Q&A.
So I'll ask you directly, guys. Hi, Sergey. Nice to meet you. I want to ask you guys, do you sell outside of NATO, outside of Ukraine,